Instead of having the game get started instantly as the program is launched, let's have some initial welcome screen and then have a start button. So the user presses the start button to start the game. So for doing so, in the window, on the bottom of the window, let's add a button called the start button. So let's add a start button. Start button. Let's call it start. And then let's wrap it up by button panel. So at this moment we have only one button, but you may add more later. So anyway, let's have a button panel, add the start button, and then on the south of the content pane, south, let's add a button panel. So normally for event listeners like a key or a mouse, that's a controller part. So we have created a class for that and then added under controller. But to show some other advanced feature of the Java language, let me just put it inside the window. The features I'm going to show is anonymous class, and eventually lambda function is there. So this is good for event listener. So normally what we do is we need to define a class. So here for the event listener, we could define class named like button listener, and then which implements action listener interface there. And then we add the action performed method. So here is a suggestion there. This is the event listener. So let's do something like, for testing purpose, let's do some message printing. Button clicked there. So onto the start button we call add action listener, and then provide a listener object there. So we create a listener object, button listener, new button listener there. Listener, I have used it already. Oh, over there listener is being used. So let's give something like this. So that's what we typically do. So let me show you how it works. So as we run on the bottom of the window, now start button is there. As I click, we can see button clicked shows up. So that's what we have done normally there. But in anonymous class is that since this is used only once, we create object of a button listener only once, so we don't have to give this kind of local variable declaration, but instead we would just pass this one directly, so that's acceptable. We know that. And second, anonymous class is that if you create object only once, and then the class implements interface, then we could skip giving name of the class, but give, instead of a class name here, give interface directly action listener. Then after the parenthesis, give a curly brace directly there. And then within the curly brace, you just give whatever is needed to implement the class. So this is called the anonymous class. We define a class without giving name explicitly, but instead use the interface name as if it's class, but just give the implementation of the method required directly there. So now we can delete the the button class defined, but we have added an event listener to the button without giving a name of the class, but we created an object of the class. So that's called the anonymous class. This should work. So let's test. Again, as I press the button clicked works. So that's the anonymous class. And then one step further is called the lambda function. Lambda function is that now we can further reduce this syntax. On add listener method, all we need is the parameter, and then what you want to do. Others, compiler can know that what is required. The compiler knows that add action listener requires an object which implementing action listener interface. Action listener interface is this method there, but this method has one parameter name is e. So the only thing the compiler cannot guess is the name of the parameter. So keep that one. So let's delete everything the compiler can guess. So keep the parameter, which is a user provided one, and then the body of the method. So let's give an arrow to distinguish parameters from body of the function there. Something like this. So this is called the lambda function. Lambda function is a function without the name of the function. We define the method without the giving name of the method. The general syntax is a parameter. If you have more than one, give inside the parenthesis with a comma separate syntax. And then function body, give it within curly brace, something like this. So that's the general syntax of a lambda function, but here some abbreviation shortcut is that if you have only one parameter, parenthesis is optional, and then the body of the method you have only one statement, then curly brace is optional, then we don't need a semicolon there. So that's the lambda function implementation, and then if we run it, we would get the same result. So as I click start button clicked shows up. So that button clicked message comes from lambda function expression. But if you have more than one statement is the method, so we would give a curly brace, and then this is one statement, we should give a semicolon there. So that's the general syntax. Using this lambda function, we are going to continue with the start screen before we actually play the game.